Smoking is injurious to health. It causes cancer. These words of warning sound so familiar if you are a frequent visitor to cinema hall. But we often ignore such warnings as most of us are not aware of the danger of exposure to second-hand smoking. In a country of 280 million tobacco users, we do not need another killing machine. How brutal is this killer? Let's take a look at the latest WHO statistics. Tobacco kills one person every 6 seconds. It kills 6 million people annually. It is projected to kill 8 million by 2030. 80% death would be in low and medium income countries. What about India? Tobacco kills about 1 million Indians annually, and cancer accounts for a major chunk of such deaths. As per the WHO report, unless urgent measures are taken, India is going to witness a major explosion in the number of cancer patients. And to rub salt into the wound, India does not have the necessary medical infrastructure to handle the inflow of such patients. So, what is the solution? One of the measures suggested by WHO is that, like many other economies such as Turkey, France and Uruguay, India should ruthlessly hike the tax rates on smoked and non-smoked tobacco. Will it work? Let me now take you to my panel of distinguished experts who are going to answer all such unanswered questions.
Hello and welcome to Simply Intoxicating. Today's episode is dedicated to the global cause of public health, and the trigger point is WHO's latest report titled Global Tobacco Epidemic 2015. Tobacco kills, and logically it should scare people. But unfortunately most of us are not scared. And the reason is perhaps the uncertainty about the certainty of death. The cancer is one of the regions which has its origin in tobacco consumption. As per the report, as many as 15 lakhs, 1.5 million Indians are going to die due to tobacco consumption by 2020. Cancer happens to be the big brother among all the killers like lung cancer, heart elements, etc. As per the report, what is the solution? The solution lies perhaps in raising the tax component to a level which will perhaps compel tobacco consumption to go down. We are going to look at all these dimensions, particularly the tax component and the socio-economic impact, and of course the public health, which involves all of us. We have three distinguished guests with us. They are a major bundle of experience. We have Mr. T.R. Rustagi, former Chief Commissioner of Customs and Central Excise. More importantly, the Joint Secretary, Tax Research Unit in Ministry of Finance. We have Dr. Jagdish Kaur. She is from the Ministry of Health. We have Jyotsna Gobil from the Indian Cancer Society. So, let me start with Dr. Kaur. Please tell us, give us an overview about how serious, how scary is this tobacco smoke screen in India?
See, basically, tobacco is a global epidemic, and now it concerns whole of the world, and that is why efforts are there globally, because it was felt that individually, countries are not able to put in that much of effort. So globally, with the help of WHO, we came up with some strategies to control this epidemic. And this WHO Framework Convention on Tobacco Control, this is the first global treaty which the WHO has come up in its entire history. I mean, they haven't come out with any other treaty because of the global nature of this tobacco epidemic. So it has to be a collective effort to fight this global epidemic. Yes.
Okay. You would like to add something to the picture which is projecting, the problem of tobacco use in India?
India is very unique in its tobacco use, and I think we need to recognize that as our starting point. While the world can talk about taxation on cigarettes, we talk about taxation on the entire tobacco spectrum. And it is not enough for us that cigarette companies alone are taxed. and that too where there are all kinds of ways of evading those taxes. Cigarettes are made of different lengths, they are taxed separately. Bidis are made, they supposedly handmade and machine made. They are taxed differently. The chewing tobacco, I don't know in what category it falls, but I think basically it is one of those things that is just sold so freely. Every little pouch of tobacco costs only about ₹1 or 2. I think if nothing else, if we could make those packets a minimum of 50 grams, where somebody, a child, would have to pay 50 rupees instead of ₹1, we will have achieved something. Taxation, I think, is a minefield. I know Mr. Rastogi will give us all the details, but I want to introduce you to my friend, the cancer man or woman. It's important that you know what cancer does, what tobacco does in the body. It's not a pretty sight. And I think some of the most painful deaths come by tobacco use. It's not instant death. If death came instantly, it would be very kind. But if it comes in, जैसे कहते हैं तिनका तिनका, it kills you by the minute, by the hour, by the day. And it's not, please don't imagine that cancer is only confined to the lungs or the mouth. It is confined to every part of the body. It is important for people to know it.
That one thing which is undisputed is tobacco kills. So whoever is consuming it should be mentally ready that it's going to kill me, if not today, maybe tomorrow, and bit by bit, on hourly basis or maybe day basis. The most vital point which you have raised is the second-hand smoking, that it impacts children, impacts others who are passive smokers in the surroundings, not necessarily family members, maybe even neighbors, maybe even society at large. So, have we really done anything for that? The Ministry of Health, the Government of India has come out with...
My colleague Jyotsna ji has pointed out that it kills, and the research says that 50% of the users of tobacco, they will be finally killed because of the tobacco use, suffering from various diseases. So it's not only cancer, heart disease, lung diseases, and tobacco, in fact, it affects every organ of the body, so in different ways. So there are different diseases which children suffer from, adults suffer from. Direct exposure to tobacco when we consume it, and indirect, like second-hand smoke. And beyond that also, let me first tell you that I'll come back to second-hand smoke. There is third-hand smoke also. So, when the tobacco smoke, it gets absorbed into different things. For example, the curtains, the carpet, the sofas, the furniture. And the small babies, when they crawl and they touch these things, so nicotine gets absorbed through the skin. We call it third-hand smoke. For the second-hand smoke, second-hand smoke is also a major killer. And it affects the person who comes in contact. And tobacco smoke as such, it contains 7,000 chemicals, and out of that 69 are carcinogenic. That means they cause cancer. So it's not that the person who's himself is smoking is getting affected. The family members who are close, and the friends, the peer group who are around you, in an office, wherever. Because there have been several cases, and the research has established, the person who has never smoked is now suffering from lung cancer because he or she was exposed. Right. And even the cardiac diseases, chronic lung diseases, all these things are there.
So one part is the legislative part, where the government has done well. They have already legislated, they have framed rules, those laws and rules are in place. But the most vital part is the enforcement.
So it's up to you and me.
So is it enforcement part, is a voluntary enforcement, I have to enforce it against myself? Or somebody else is going to enforce those rules?
If you are not doing it yourself, then somebody has to do it.
Yes, that is what I would like to know this, that whether this has been this...
broad list, we made it a very broad list, and even the state government can add on to that list and make the people, the law enforcers.
Correct. So this brings it to you, sir. In fact, I am just looking at very interesting ground reality, that in Government of India, is very sensitized about public health, and that is why they have this kind of, the tobacco control program, various kinds of missions, spending a lot of money. The tax collected goes as various kinds of expenditure. But the government of India also has a tobacco promotion board, sir. So, do you see, sir, some kind of dichotomy here, the little paradox?
Yes, I think it is interesting what you are saying. It's interesting that they have a tobacco promotion board. But as I said, there are conflicting interests sometimes.
Right.
For example, tobacco board may be saying that there are a lot of cultivators who are producing tobacco. Our land is good for producing good quality tobacco. And there are consumers of tobacco outside India also.
Right.
So if you are able to export tobacco, what is wrong in that from economic point of view?
Right.
That it is giving employment to a lot of people.
Foreign exchange.
It is giving you foreign exchange.
Right.
So there could be a different purpose for the tobacco board.
Absolutely.
But tobacco board's purpose may not be to encourage the consumption of tobacco in India. So their purpose may be very limited. If you read the terms of reference of the tobacco board, it may be limited to a few aspects of the tobacco production, tobacco sale, tobacco export, etc.
Our problem, where it's mainly smokeless tobacco. So, as per the Global Adult Tobacco Survey India in 2010, which we did, 35% of our adults, that is 15 years and more above age, they are consuming tobacco. And out of that, 26%, they are consuming smokeless tobacco. So, we have kind of 27.5 crores people smoking, using tobacco.
So that reminds me of a very vital point, what Dr. Kaur is, sharing with us, that this age group, the most productive age group, the demographic dividend which India is very proud of, and Prime Minister talks about reaping the demographic benefit, this kind of problems prevails. How exactly we are going to reap that benefit?
Yes, because see, tobacco is the most common preventable cause of death. This can be prevented if we don't. But if we use, then there is huge health, economic and social cost. So we have to decide. And kind of products which we use, it's almost 200 kinds of product. And India is a unique country, in that perspective. We are the only country where there are so many smokeless and also this hookah, bidi, smoking forms, chirut, and various kinds depending, and local. We are a big country, different states are using different products.
So this
by different
smokeless
names.
is more popular because it's cheaper, and it has some kind of relationship with the poverty or something? The people cannot afford, and then
it's kind of acceptance, social acceptance, that's high. Like if you smoke, then people may, somebody
look
is
at
smoking
you
all.
and somebody is
But if
swaying.
you chew, nobody is minding. And because it's combined with the betel nut, supari, other things, and pan.
So
which
it
has
gives extra kick
traditionally-
also.
Yes.
Okay.
It's
Okay.
kind of, society is accepting,
Right,
it's been part
correct.
of our socio-cultural, religious milieu,
Yes.
We are offering to the god, betel nut,
right.
mixing, all those things.
Yeah, the
In
pan
Northeast
patta
and some
beetles,
states you go, they'll offer you all these things. So, it's part of our behavior, basically.
Absolutely.
So, that's what. And what I feel, as a public health person, that it's our problem. So, solution has also to be with us. Other countries who don't even know these products, they can't guide us. They have controlled cigarettes, they have regulated.
Right.
So, they can only tell us about
smoking.
Yes,
The smoking,
that's
right. So
only-
cigarette
only-
is the problem, but our problem is not cigarette.
Cigarette-
Rather, we can
yes.
give cigarette to others,
Yes.
but our problem is smokeless.
Also,
It's single
when
product.
we
Right.
Yes. But,
when we say that hookah is a cultural thing, we talk of hookah pani
Pani
band
band
karna.
हाँ.
एक जानलेवा,
Right.
एक जान देवा.
Jaan deva,
है
absolutely.
ना?
Yes.
But what have we done now? For all the young children, there are hookah bars. And they say that it is chocolate, strawberry, other flavors. So very often the children say to us, but it can't do us harm because it's only chocolate, it's only strawberry. So I give them a piece of chocolate, I said, please light it. Light it and show me how you can smoke. And when you go into a bar, a hookah bar, the amount of smoke in that bar is enough to kill you even if that hookah does not. So I think that, all these are newfangled ways in which tobacco companies still try to latch on to young users. They need new users because they are killing all the old ones.
I think Indian society is structurally different from other countries.
Yes.
See, my perception is that this chewing tobacco or gutka or pan masala, for large section of the society, particularly people who are poor, who are not rich, who are working very hard, who are labor class, for them it is a de-stressing agent for ages.
Yes, correct.
They have to do something as a de-stressing activity.
True.
You take a rickshawala for example. He is doing so much labor throughout the day, he does not have time for anything else. So what he does, if you see in Kolkata or in other places, he will sit for 5-10 minutes, take out his gutka pouch, consume something, and start using his cycle rickshaw once over again. So it is a de-stressing factor for him.
For 6 months, Legal Wrangle has relentlessly served you vital judicial decisions in the taxation domain. But our viewers want more. Now, Legal Wrangle broadens its horizons into the corporate realm. Every fortnight, we shall bring you cases pertaining to Companies Act, Competition Act, capital market rulings and much more. Please stay connected for our soon to be announced first episode of Legal Wrangle on corporate laws.
You have, ma'am, some kind of a study with you where you found that it has a direct connection, nexus, with the poverty.
Yes, tobacco and poverty are linked, it's a vicious cycle. And before that, I'll just try to explain, it's as a de-stressing thing because it's highly addictive.
Right.
Nicotine content in tobacco is one of the highest addictive substance available,
Okay.
and it's much more than alcohol, cocaine, heroin. And we talk so much about that because the effect comes immediate. So we talk of alcohol and these substances, but not tobacco because it's a slow.
So that brings us to a very important aspect where the WHO report talks about is taxation. As rightly said, awareness is one part of it. Enforcement could be another dimension of it. But as for this convention, WHO convention for tobacco control, they are suggesting that there are certain countries where the tariff, the tax rate, excise duty rate and various other rates, overall incidence of taxation, when it was jacked up to a level which should be little more than 75% of the MRP. In that case, there has been a substantial impact on reduction of tobacco consumption. So they are suggesting, the WHO, that poor countries and developing and transition economies like India, for instance, should also hike the tax rate. The crux is that if the tax rates are hiked, poor country like India, for instance, we will have more resources which can be utilized for funding, the public health schemes. Secondly, it will also drastically reduce the tobacco consumption, and of course the other implications which we have, like cancer and various kinds of diseases, etc. So that is where, sir, maybe I would like to have your views on this. So that in India, looking at the state of affairs, so far as tariff rates are concerned,
I think in India, this taxation of tobacco has always been an issue. And if you look at the history, year after year, I have never seen in my time when at any point of time a finance minister has ventured to reduce the excise duty on tobacco. Year after year, the excise duties have been raised, year after year. But the issue is that if you raise the excise duties too much, or if you raise the taxes too much, it has its implications. It leads to avoidance of tax, it leads to evasion of tax. So you have to strike a balance when you fix the rate of excise duty as to what is the appropriate level of taxation. You may make it 400% excise duty, but what will happen is your revenue will drop. It is only nominally you may feel that I will collect 4 times the excise duty or 5 times the excise duty, but it doesn't happen. It has never happened. So the problem is that taxation also has its limitation, because if you raise the duties very high, it leads to avoidance, it leads to evasion of taxes. So if you take the
I think that it happened in case of when government granted exemption to Northeast. Good number of tobacco companies set up their
went
units
in Northeast, that is, they went in Northeast because you have to strike a balance. It is a demerit good.
Right.
But the question is that if you want development in Northeast, who is going in Northeast? So they are inviting people that okay, even if a demerit good producer goes in Northeast, it has the other merits that some investment will take place in Northeast and some employment will generate
employment,
in
income,
Northeast.
etc.
So they strike a balance that even otherwise nobody is going there. So if somebody is going and he is giving employment, he is giving,
Right.
he is making investment, then it has a positive aspect of that.
And there was a evasion part, is remember, so that some of the tobacco manufacturers located elsewhere, but they were claiming that this consignment was actually manufactured in Northeast, therefore there is duty.
That can
exemption.
happen.
That kind of
in
scenario.
cigarette, for example, they have tried all sorts of experiments. There used to be ad valorem kind of duty, which is based on the price of the cigarette. It did not work because there could be manipulations of the factory's price, and the price could be shifted afterwards to the wholesale level or the retail level. So you can reduce the factory price, factory gate price. So your incidence of taxation will come down. So that could be one demerit of ad valorem tax which was discovered. So they tried MRP, that will charge on the basis of
that
MRP.
also did not work, yes.
Then there were problems that you may fix MRP, but the actual MRP is different. So therefore the avoidance part of taxation is not taken care of.
Correct.
Then they have tried the length of cigarette, that you try on the basis of length of cigarette, that if it is 65 mm, then the taxation rate will be like this. If it is more than 65, then the taxation rate will be like this.
Did it work? I mean, is it working well?
Which is working today. Then they have tried filter cigarettes and non-filter cigarettes, that there could be a distinction, there could be different rate of tax. So all sorts of experiments have been done so far as tobacco taxation is concerned. You take, the only exception is BDs. Otherwise, if you take the gutka or if you take the other kind of tobacco product, chewing tobacco, they are charging excise duty on the basis of a number of machines installed.
Compounding is
That if you have, that is a compounding
Compounding
scheme.
scheme,
So if you are installing 50 machines, then you have to pay duty on 50 machines. They have gone to this extent that if you are installing 50 machines, but if you are operating only one machine, the duty has to be paid on 50 machines.
Right, correct. For some reason, machine has broken down, etc.
So all sorts of experiments have been done so far as the taxation is concerned. And if you take cigarettes, for example, the cigarette is charged to excise duty by the central government. Then it is charged to VAT or local taxes or luxury taxes by the state government. So if you take the overall taxation, my calculation is that it will go much beyond 35% of the MRP as on today.
Yeah, certainly, sir. It is more, I think. Yeah.
Is there an equation between the tax earned and the amount of money spent in public health programs? Leave aside public health programs. Most Indians do not have any recourse to public health spending. They are spending from their own pockets. You asked about poverty. This is what drives most of them into further poverty. So when we talk taxation, there has to be a quid pro quo. If you're getting the taxes, are you spending it on public health programs?
Okay. So what's he suggesting, sir? There should be a direct linkage between.
See, why don't you ban all these things?
Yes.
Why don't you ban completely? That there will be no production of tobacco products, there will be no selling of tobacco products, there will be no stocking of tobacco products in the country anywhere.
Like drugs, we can destroy it.
Can you do that?
See, then there comes the issue
Can you
of
do that?
livelihood.
Can we do that, ma'am?
Can we do that?
See,
Can
then-
the world do that?
See, then, in our country, we have millions of farmers, we have millions of farm workers, we have bidi rollers, we have growers, we have tendu leaf,
Self-employed people who are
tendu
involved in
leaf,
this
that,
selling of the products,
yeah.
millions.
Yeah. And then retailer chain, that's different. I'm just talking till the manufacturing. So then their livelihood issues are there. Although the studies, the public health evidence says no, we can shift over to the livelihoods, and even if these people shift over to other things, they stop selling or growing tobacco, they are not going to lose their livelihood. It has never happened.
How serious is the problem of illicit trade, sir, in India?
They say, ITC, for example, ITC claims they have issued their statement only yesterday. They are saying, according to ITC, the cigarette business faced unprecedented pressure with a sharp 115% cumulative increase in excise duty on filter cigarettes of length 65 mm last year. This has widened the price difference between legal and illegal cigarettes and made it difficult for the legal cigarette industry to counter the unabated growth of illegal cigarettes. The share of legal cigarettes in overall tobacco consumption has progressively fell from 21% in 1981-82 to below 12% in 2014-15, and even overall tobacco consumption in India has increased, said the ITC statement, adding that rise of illegal cigarettes sales has sub-optimized revenue potential from the tobacco sector.
But is it not the case? Is it necessarily this fall in the percentage has something to do with the consumption, or it is because of the increase in the population? The percentage can always go down otherwise also. So, this study, if they talk in terms of...
It appears so far as the number of smokers are concerned, their number is not coming down.
Right. It's only the consumption of legally acquired cigarette stick, probably that is going down.
Or proportion is going to illicit.
Right.
Side.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And otherwise also the area under tobacco
So when
cultivation.
they're talking about illicit thing, that illicit is, they're talking about the non-registered domestic manufacturer or the smuggled cigarette?
Both, I think.
Both.
Yeah.
But is there some kind of a study anybody has done?
Lots
where they
of
found
studies there in
tobacco, if somebody is consuming tobacco, that person is necessarily also consuming liquor or maybe other vices? Some study, some kind of samples?
It is generally said based on the research that tobacco is the gateway drug. They start with tobacco and then they move on to other things. So like youngsters in college or in high school and whatever, they start with smoking and then they move on to others. So it is called the gateway drug.
To wrap up this, this debate, and let me thank my three panelists for making such a valuable suggestion and variety of ideas, and of course, they rightly pointed out that we have to say no to tobacco and it has to come from within. The community initiatives are there, as rightly suggested that there are lots of villages which have said no to tobacco, and at one point of time they used to consume it, now they are saying no, and that is becoming infectious for other villages which are also saying no, and that's a kind of campaign, that's a kind of fire which needs to catch across the country. And initiatives, the government of India is of course making lots of initiative. The states perhaps, and even the third tier of the authority, the government, perhaps the panchayats, the municipalities, they need to be a little more sensitized, come forward with this. And the efforts which are being made in terms of helping farmers move from tobacco to other crops, perhaps that needs to be accelerated. Of course, the other side, the opponents of this public health, they will continue to do research to come up with new products like hookah bar and chocolates and etc. That will continue because ultimately it's a battle of innovations and these innovations will continue, but our efforts should continue. But India must say, because India's problem is little more unique. Our problem is not cigarette sticks. Our problem is a smokeless, and that is where India has to fight its lone battle, where the WHO and other countries' experience will be of some help, but not much. Because our socio-economic conditions, the cost which we are going to incur for this, maybe the taxation side, the BD rolling itself is a serious problem. It's a different vertical which needs a different kind of debate. But otherwise, looking at the taxation part, India has done well in the past. if we include the state taxes, if we include the octroi and entry taxes, etc., the tax component is pretty high. Of course, the WHO convention of 75% incidence of taxation, I am sure the India will be very close to meeting that target very soon, maybe in the next budget perhaps. And as Sir rightly suggested that every year we have been, hiking the tax rate on cigarettes. So let's hope that the tobacco awareness spreads like a wildfire across the country. Each household, each mother, each father, they teach their children that tobacco, it not only kills you, but it kills the entire family, because the bread earner is gone, the family is gone. So let's hope that India at some stage becomes a completely tobacco-free, smoke-free country. Thanking all for watching this debate. Yes.